I audible?
Yes,
Yes.
audible.
Good afternoon. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Myself, Dr. Kamal Mandal, Assistant Professor, Department of Botany, Hiral Mutlar Memorial College for Women, Dakshineshwar. As we all know, the global pandemic changed the world. Every human being in this planet suffered the consequences of the lockdown. However, it is our small effort to present this webinar during these unfavorable conditions. Today, we are presenting two lecture sessions on bio, bio, biosorption of pharmaceutical contaminants from aqueous system utilizing absorbent prepared from agricultural waste, presented by Dr. Sandip Mandal, and urban forests and human well-being, presented by Dr. Pinaki Acharya. Just a little reminder before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentations, please type them into the chat box on Google Meet as well as YouTube Play Live. We will bring them up during the presentation, and we will also have time for the questions at the end of each presentation on interactive sessions as possible. All the participants are requested to hold their patience in any momentary interruption occurs due to any unavoidable and unpredicted technical issues, which are very common in this visual mode of communication. I hope you will all enjoy the webinar very much with us. Thank you. Now, without further delay, I like to request our respected Principal Madam, Dr. Shoma Ghosh, to inauguration of the webinar and chair the webinar session. Madam, please.
Thank you, Tamal. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. I must convey my thanks to the Department of Botany, who, under the leadership of its head, Dr. Madhusri Dash, an active effort given by Dr. Tamal Mondol, Srimati Munmun Kundu, Ishita, Ritik, Ravi Shankar, and others, has organized such a wonderful webinar, which is a very relevant one in the context of recent phenomena. As we all know, that rapid urbanization is obvious consequence of a liberal economy, and liberal economy is based on the practices of consumerism and commercialization. Now, at the same time, due to this, it affects our environment in a negative way. Development of slums up to construction of large buildings, traffic congestion, and poor sanitation all have negative impacts on human health and environment. In this pandemic era, it is as well creating constraints for all the governments, both federal and the state, to make the people follow the rules of social distancing as well. During Amphan in West Bengal, we have seen how rapid urbanization and consequent deforestation led us to usher in a devastating situation. Unplanned plantation of trees, unscientific afforestation, unplanned habitation have caused unprecedented destruction due to supercyclone. So these environmental and biological issues related to planned forestation need to be discussed and explored with all scientific vigor to attempt to prevent such wider disruption in future. Civilization has honored us with many gifts of healthy living, but at the same time has left no stone unturned to damage our nature. Use of science and technology for human life or for business and politics, it is the major question for the sake of sustainable development. Now, the question is whether instead of importing ideas from the West, or whether uh, we can have an indigenous mechanisms, whether we can use our agricultural products to save our nature and economy. This is a bigger challenge for us. The question of the day is, can globalization blended with localization in respect to ideas and environment can be our savior? Let's make an attempt to enlighten ourselves by listening to the lectures to be delivered by our honored guests, Dr. Shondeep Mondol and by Dr. Pinaki Acharya. I welcome both the speakers and request them to deliver their lecture. I convey my gratitude to them for sparing some of their valuable time for us, as well as I welcome all the participants who have graced the occasion by joining our webinar. I'm thankful. I express my thanks to the Department of Botany, all the teachers, Madhusri, Tamal, Ishita, Munmun, Ritik, Ravishankar, as well as I convey my thanks to the webinar organizing committee under the leadership of Pradipta Mukherjee. And this committee, I must say, is tirelessly working to organize good webinars, which are all very enlightening for us. It is my proud privilege to convey my gratitude to our beloved colleagues, Atrey and Pooja, who are really tirelessly providing us with all sorts of technological support. With this brief note, and with a note of thanks to our IQAC, especially IQAC coordinator Dr. Rupa Shen, I'd like to request Dr. Shen to conduct the session, uh, conduct the session ahead. So let me hand it over to Dr. Shen for conducting the rest of the session. Thank you.
ধন্যবাদ ম্যাডাম। নমস্কার। আমাদের মহাবিদ্যালয়ের উদ্ভিদবিদ্যা বিভাগের আয়োজনে আজকের ওয়েবিনারে উপস্থিত সকলকে আন্তরিকভাবে স্বাগত জানাই আমাদের শ্রদ্ধেয় বক্তাদের অধ্যাপক ডক্টর পিনাকি আচার্য এবং ডক্টর সন্দীপ মণ্ডল মহাশয়কে। আজকের বিষয় আরবান ফরেস্টস অ্যান্ড হিউম্যান ওয়েলবিং, যার ওপর বক্তব্য রাখবেন আমাদের অন্যতম বক্তা ডক্টর পিনাকি আচার্য, ডিপার্টমেন্ট অফ হর্টিকালচার, কলকাতা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়, এবং সন্দীপ মণ্ডল, bioabsorption of pharmaceutical contaminants from system utilizing absorbent prepared from agricultural waste. খুব সত্যি যে কনভেনশনাল যে ওয়েস্ট ওয়াটার ট্রিটমেন্ট, তার মাধ্যমে plants not viable for conventional water treatment plants is not viable for eliminating what you call pharmaceutical compounds in the water system. সেখানে আজকে আমরা ওনার মাধ্যমে বিকল্প কি কি পদ্ধতি থাকতে পারে তার সন্ধান নিশ্চয়ই পাবো, যাতে ওয়াটার সিস্টেম থেকে এই ফার্মাসিউটিক্যাল কম্পাউন্ড নিষ্কাশিত হয়। আর ডক্টর আচার্যর আমাদের সামনে আরবান ফরেস্ট্রেশন সম্পর্কে আলোকপাত করবেন। আমরা তো সবাই জানি যে 90s এর একেবারে শুরু থেকে যে উদারীকরণের যে প্রক্রিয়া শুরু হয়েছে বিশ্ব জুড়ে, ফলে প্রচুর শহর রয়েছে বা প্রচুর অঞ্চল রয়েছে যেখানে হয়তো ওই উন্নয়নের নামে আমরা প্রাকৃতিক সম্পদকে ধ্বংস করে চলেছি। তো এই লিবারালাইজেশনের পর শহরগুলো কংক্রিটের জঙ্গলে ভরে উঠছে। একদা ওই প্রকৃতির শান্ত ছায়ায় যে আমরা বড় হওয়ার সুযোগ পেয়েছিলাম তা থেকে এখনকার প্রজন্ম কিন্তু বঞ্চিত। ওই যে বললাম, ডেভেলপমেন্টের আড়ালে আমরা প্রকৃতিতে পড়ে যাচ্ছি। নগরায়নের যে প্রক্রিয়া, বাড়ি ঘর রাস্তা ব্রিজ তৈরি হয়ে চলেছে, জীবন স্বচ্ছন্দ করে তোলবার জন্য কিন্তু গাছপালার ধ্বংস করে ইকোলজিকে ক্রমশ গ্রাস করছে এই স্বার্থপরতা, লোভ, প্রতিযোগিতার যে তীব্র গতি, সেগুলো আমরা প্রকৃতির ওপরে ক্রমাগত আঘাত হানছি এবং অন্যায় করে চলেছি। ভুলে যাচ্ছি প্রকৃতি ছাড়া আমরা নিজেরাও অচল হয়ে পড়ব। আমার তো মনে হয় এই মুহূর্তে পৃথিবীর যে অবস্থা, যে প্রাকৃতিক সংকটের মধ্যে আমরা পড়েছি, তাতে স্কুল পড়ুয়া স্তর থেকে একেবারে খুদে পড়ুয়াদের মধ্যে এই বিষয়ে সচেতন করে তোলাটা ভীষণ প্রয়োজন। বাস্তবটা কি তাদেরকে ধরিয়ে দেওয়া এবং সেই ডিরেকশনে যেন তারা ভাবে এবং কাজ করে সেটা তাদের বুঝিয়ে দেওয়া। সকলে মিলে যতক্ষণ না আমরা এর মর্ম উপলব্ধি করছি ততক্ষণ বোধহয় প্রকৃতির রোষানল থেকে মুক্তি নেই। কথায় আছে, প্রকৃতির বিরুদ্ধে গেলে প্রকৃতি তার শোধ তো নেবেই। পারি নাকি আমরা একটু ব্যালেন্স করে চলতে, যাতে আমরা এবং প্রকৃতি একই সঙ্গে সেই আগের মতনই থাকতে পারি? এই একই উদ্দেশ্যে আমি একটা ক্ষুদ্র নিবেদন আপনাদের সামনে রাখছি। পথের ধারে শেকড় গেড়ে দাঁড়িয়ে আছি আমি, মাস বছর ঘুরে ঘুরে এখন গেছে বয়স বেড়ে। বৃদ্ধ আমি, নুজ্জ হলেও বাতাসটুকু তো পাও, শ্রান্ত দেহে আমার ছায়ায় আশ্রয় তাও তো আজও নাও। বলতে পারো কেন তবু আমায় মারতে চাও? নিজে বাঁচো, বাঁচতে দাও, এই মন্ত্রে করপণ। প্রকৃতিবিহীন মানব তোমার জীবনটা হবে যে এলোমেলো, অর্থহীন। সত্যি এই ভাবনাগুলো যদি আমাদের মনের আনাচে কানাচে একটু আমরা ঠাঁই দিতে পারি, বোধহয় আমরা যে অসচেতন ভাবে যে কাজগুলো করে চলেছি সেগুলো থেকে আমরা বিরত থাকব এবং প্রকৃতিকে আমরা রক্ষা করতে কিছুটা হলেও সমর্থ হব। আমি আর দীর্ঘায়িত করব না, এখানেই আমি শেষ করছি। আর আশা করি আজকের ওয়েবিনার সকলে উপভোগ করবেন। যখন প্রোগ্রাম শেষ হয়ে যায় অনেকেই অনেকটা সমৃদ্ধ হয়ে আবার যে যার জগতে ফিরবেন। সুতরাং আসুন আমরা সবাই মিলে আজকে বক্তাদের কাছ থেকে তাদের বিষয়টি শুনি। ধন্যবাদ।
Thank you, our respected principal madam and our IPS coordinator, Dr. Rupashan madam. Now I request our colleague Mumun Kundu to introduce our speaker of the first session.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, Rupa madam, for your wonderful recitation. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Today we are pleased to welcome Dr. Sandeep Mondal, a very special guest from China. Dr. Sandeep Mondal has obtained his postgraduate MS or Masters in Science in Pharmaceutical Biotechnology from National Institute of Pharmaceutical Education and Research, Ahmedabad, one of the premier institute of India. He obtained doctoral degree from National Institute of Technology, Durgapur. He is a recipient of UGC CSIR, NET, and qualified in GET in Pharmaceutical Sciences organized by IIT India. He is former postdoctoral researcher, Sun Yat-sen University, People's Republic of China. He also served as a research and teaching assistant at Southern University of Science and Technology, PR, China. Currently, he is working as Senior Postdoctoral Research Fellow, Guangdong University of Technology, PR, China. His area of research interests are pharmaceutical biotechnology, drug design, nanotechnology, mathematical modeling of drug design, drug delivery, environmental biotechnology. He published research articles was 11 and already communicated 3 in various high impact factor international journals like Elsevier, Springer Nature, Taylor and Francis, Molecules, etc. He is invited speaker in various national and international conferences. And now he will discuss on bioabsorption of pharmaceutical contaminants from aqueous system utilizing adsorbent prepared from agricultural waste. With that, I request all to give your full attention and join me in welcoming him. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Gundu madam.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
this is the starting session of our webinar. I request Dr. Sandeep Mandal, please deliver your presentation.
First of all, I am honored for the invitation to deliver a lecture in the One Day International webinar. I am thankful to respected Principal Madam, Dr. Shoma Ghosh, Kiran Mujumdar Memorial College for Women, Dakshineshwar, IQAC, and of course the Department of Botany of this college for the invitation. So now is it okay for everyone? Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is visible.
Okay. So, hello, respected faculty members and fellow participants. Welcome to today's session. In this session, I will present you a brief idea about pharmaceutical contaminants in the environment and how we can remove it by utilizing low-cost agricultural waste. So, this is the outline of my presentation. So, it has mainly 4 parts, as you can see. In the introduction part, I will discuss about pharmaceutical waste, from where it comes into the environment, what kinds of problems are associated with it, and what are the current methods we are using to remove pharmaceutical waste. And at the second part, I will select one pharmaceutical compound as a model pharmaceutical and one agricultural waste as a model adsorbent. And at the third part, it means the model experimental investigation, result, and discussion. And at last, I'll conclude my presentation. So let's start. So first of all, we should know what is pharmaceutical waste. So we are actually consuming, everybody know that we are consuming different kinds of drugs. Drugs means the pharmaceutical compound, the medicinal drugs. So pharmaceutical wastes are actually medicinal drugs that are either expired, unused. Maybe you buy it, but you forget or you don't need it. So it's an unused drugs or contaminated drugs, or actually when it will be no longer needed. So actually drug consists of 2 components. One is pharmaceutical active ingredient. This is the main ingredient and this is the excipient. This ingredient, the active pharmaceutical ingredient, affect in the body, whereas excipient, it is the drug, it is the thing, it is the substance other than the drug that helps deliver the medication to our system. So like gelatin, cellulose, and maybe polyvinyl pyrrolidine, these two things consist, and then they are actually contribute to generate pharmaceutical waste. So now our question is from where the pharmaceutical comes into the environment and how actually it affects in our environment. So as you can see here, pharmaceutical manufacturing facility produces different kinds of pharmaceuticals, and then this pharmaceutical actually used by either human or animal. In case of animal, you can see the animal farming. In animal farming, several kinds of pharmaceuticals are used, like antibiotics, some hormonal drugs, and in aquaculture also to treat the disease, we use different kinds of antibiotics or other medicinal drugs. And in case of humans are used different kinds of drug consumed, and they ultimately after consumption they are actually excreted through by different sources, and then it comes into the either in a domestic or hospital wastewater. And in case of pharmaceutical manufacturing facility, they discard the pharmaceutical or discard the some of the pharmaceutical into the industrial wastewater. This is actually the loss. They don't discard, this is the loss of pharmaceuticals and it comes into the industrial wastewater. So, and some of these two things or this wastewater actually come into the surface water, either directly discharge into the surface water. Although in the environmental perspective, it is clearly a no to discharge the pharmaceutical into the surface water. It must be passed through a sewage system and then the wastewater treatment plant. And then it should come into the surface water. The main problem here is that the wastewater treatment plant, this one, cannot actually remove pharmaceutical contaminant effectively. So there is a gap. We need something that can help to remove the pharmaceutical compound. We should try the pharmaceutical contaminant when come into the surface water, it should be zero. Although it is very difficult, but research is going on so that it should not contaminate the groundwater, because if it will contaminate into the groundwater or or in the case of animal farming in soil or surface water, then ultimately it will come into the drinking water treatment and then we will consume it. So we don't need it. We don't need this kind of pharmaceuticals consumed by us, because you will only take pharmaceuticals when you need it. So now the question is from where the pharmaceutical, so now the question is what kind of pharmaceutical we should be worried of. So we take different kinds of pharmaceuticals. So these 3 points I can mention. First of all, which are produced and consumed especially in a very large quantities. So if the drug is in demand, so it will actually come into the environment. And the second thing is that if it is highly potent at low concentration, then it will be also a problematic for the environment. And the most important one, if it's bioaccumulate in the human body or maybe any other living biota, then it will be a real problem. So now we can see what kind of pharmaceutical classes are worldwide used, consumed intensely. As you can see, antibiotic, antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, analgesic. Even you can see nowadays the depression is so much. You can see the antidepressant drug like benzodiazepine is also found in the environmental water so much that you can detect it. And also anti-ulcer drug, antihistamines, and also some drug abuse like cocaine, barbiturates, opiates, and also heroin and narcotics. It is found in the environment. So this is an urgent need to remove this pharmaceutical compound from the wastewater or from the water. So now the question is, what are the problems associated with pharmaceutical waste? Mainly, the antibiotic resistance bacteria. Antibiotic resistance bacteria is very problematic and for all of us, because you just take the medicine, but it will not affect in our body. So, due to the generation of antibiotic resistant bacteria. And another one is some of the species are extinct due to pharmaceutical contaminant. And very important or an example is like you can see this is the vultures. These vultures actually is found in the Indian subcontinent, India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan. You can find it, and they are actually are in an extinct position because they actually sometimes they consume carrion of animals, and that actually had been treated with before with diclofenac. Diclofenac is a
Sorry for the technical fault. Just stay with us, please. Please stay with us. There is some technical problem. We are trying our best to connect with our speaker. Stay with us, please. There is a major technical fault. We lost connection with our first speaker. Okay. In our second session, I would like to we may continue with our second session, and after that, the first speaker may be available for presentation. Maybe. Now it is time for our second session. I would like to request our colleague Srimati Mohan Kundu to introduce our speaker of the second session, please.
Yes, of course, sir. Sorry for the interruption. So our next speaker is Dr. Pinaki Acharya. Dr. Pinaki Acharya obtained his graduation, post-graduation and doctoral degree in horticulture from Institute of Agricultural Science, Banaras Hindu University. He is a recipient of ICAR, GRF and SRF. Presently, he is serving as Associate Professor. Yeah, of course, sir, I will do. Presently, he is serving as Associate Professor, Department of Horticulture, Institute of Agricultural Science, University of Calcutta, and served as former head of the department as well as member of the Syndicate and Senate of the University of Calcutta. Prior to this, he served as senior scientist at ICAR Central Institute for Arid Horticulture, Bikaner, and in School of Agricultural Sciences and Rural Development, Nagaland University. He has more than 18 years of teaching and research experiences in the field of genetic diversity and breeding, marker-assisted selection, value addition in horticultural crops, nutritional profiling of indigenous and underexploited horticultural crops. He has so far guided 7 PhD and 35 MSc students in horticulture. He has registered several gene or marker sequences in GeneBank, NCBI USA in crops like papaya and citrus. He has handled several institutional and externally funded projects. He has edited 4 books and published several popular articles, book chapters, and more than 120 research papers in national and international peer-reviewed journals. Dr. Acharya is a member of several professional bodies and societies and serving as member of the editorial board and reviewer in several national and international journals. He has also been nominated as an editor for the journal Open Agriculture for Tropical Agriculture and Horticulture section brought out by T. Greater Open, Warsaw, Poland. He has visited several countries, participated in international workshops, and organized several programs. He has been instrumental in establishing linkages with international organizations. And now he will be sharing his expert opinion on urban forest and human well-being. And I welcome you, sir. So please, I'm sharing your slide. Atri? Yes.
Hello.
Yeah.
Can you?
Yes.
Am
Yes, sir.
Am I audible?
Sir, you are absolutely audible, and I am sharing your slides. Is it
Okay,
visible? Is
I
it
think the screen has been shared. I
Yeah.
think it's
Sir, screen is visible for to you?
yeah. Just a minute, please.
Yeah.
Okay, with us, please, all the participants.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Is the screen visible to all the audience?
Yes, sir.
I hope.
Sir, open the slideshow mode.
Yeah. I'm opening it. Is it visible now? Hello.
Yes, sir, visible, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So
it is visible.
I'm starting now. Shit.
It's okay, sir. Take your time.
So first of all, I would like to thank Hiralal Majumdar Memorial College for Women, Dakshineshwar, for inviting me to this webinar. And My sincere thanks to the principal, Dr. Soma Ghosh, IQSC coordinator, Dr. Rupa Sen, head of the Department of Botany, Dr. Madhusri Das, joint conveners of this webinar, Srimati Munmun Kundu, Dr. Tamal Mandal, Bursar, Dr. Lipika Malik, and all the members, Srimati Ishita Chatterjee, Sri Ritik Acharya, and Sri Ravi Shankar Das, to make this webinar possible among a wide spectrum of masses, and hopefully that my topic, that is urban forest and the human well-being, is hopefully I'm going to present it in a satisfactory manner. And this urban forest and human well-being, why I have chosen is that this topic, because first of all, you see the present situation, the COVID situation. A few months back, there was the Ampan, the subtropical storms. And then there is the, global warming, climate changes. So many things are happening within this period. And that's why I felt that we should talk on this topic, that is the urban forest and the human well-being. And being a city dweller, being city dwellers, I think we should be more, responsible citizens. And first of all, when we speak about this urban forest and well-being, it is not like it has started or we are thinking of it from today. Because, the avenue trees, the planting of the avenue trees that has been taken up by Emperor Ashoka a long time back, if you see the sculptures during the Kushan period at Mathura, we will find that there are inscriptions of different trees like Kadamba tree, the Champa tree is there, then, Ixora. So this type of inscriptions has been found in those places. So it can be, it is a well-established fact that this avenue planting has taken place from a long time back. And now, why we are going for this urban forestry? Because, first of all, they create a refreshing charm to our surroundings, and it is having an aesthetic appeal. The need for making our planet greener, for purifying the atmosphere, and the change in the climatic conditions is quite essential. And it is a continuous process. In the near days also, it is going to take place. So whenever we talk about, planting of suitable avenue trees, first of all, it is a three-pronged service to the mankind. When we speak about the three-pronged service, that means we mean that it is having a scientific understanding, it is having an educational basis, and it is also having a social impact. Now, let me come to the slide directly. What we find in the slide, that Curtis Atherton, a trustee Green for the Life Foundation, believes an urban forest is only possible with community participation. That means it is not like that me and you can do it. It requires the participation of the entire community. And when we speak about the plantation, now this plantation is divided into greening young minds to fight climate change and global warming. I am very much sure that today a big portion of the audience who is hearing are the green young minds and college goers, even, school children, because, whether you are the college goers or the school children, we must involve you, or your involvement is a must to go for planting of the trees. Because now you see in this pandemic situation, now we talk about nurturing the nature, but beforehand, we never thought of it. We were going by our own anthropogenic activities. We were doing whatever we like. And when, we think about these communities, the corporate house and individuals, it's called the Heal the Earth campaign. So overall, you can judge what's the importance of this urban forest and human well-being. Now, why we go for this urban forestry, because these urban areas maintain the balance of the life by ameliorating many features of the environment. When we speak about the many features of the environment, there are some parameters like the temperature moderation, then the noise moderation, the control of the pollution. But the urban landscape can be a harsh environment for the trees, and it is very difficult to sustain the healthy tree cover. And the cities are enormous consumers of resources, because a lot of population is there in the city, and we are consuming a lot of water, a lot of food, fuel, power, packages, and we are creating a big building blocks. We are creating hard surfaces. We, in all this this sort of activities, when they are taking place, we are increasing the temperature of the environment. We are generating the industrial waste. We are going for this hydrological modification, because the groundwater is going day by day down, and there is water scarcity. Now only you can find in many of the cities there is a water scarcity. And then the sewage channelization of the sewage is another problem. And we are having that East Kolkata westlands over here in the Kolkata, where all the drainage of the sewage of the entire city is going down through the rivers to the sea. Now, the consequence of the urbanization has also led to the extinction of many of the plant and the animal species, which were, which may have been here or were there, or may have become extinct, or maybe endangered species at present. Now, there has also been the degradation of the land through the erosion process, and there has been the compaction of the soils, because in most of the urban areas the soil is more or less compact. And then there has been the contamination of the soil and water, because the water that we take nowadays, it is having the microplastics. They are having so many type of pollutants are there, mainly of the pesticides and others, sort of this all the effluents which are coming from different industrial means houses which are along the river Ganges or Hooghly. Then there is the pollution of the atmosphere, and invasive plant species are also can be there, like the parthenium, which is very common over here. And then a lot of change in the atmospheric composition has taken place. And this overpopulation has led to the poverty and also in the change of the climate. Now, today, the topics that I am going to discuss with you all is, is split into different, you can say, under different heads. The first one is the impacts of the urbanization of the trees. Then we will go for site assessment for urban tree planting, then basic planting design, then special considerations for urban tree planting, the site preparation, and the planting and the maintenance techniques. So when we speak about the consequences of the urbanization, as I have told you already, the extinction of the plant and the animal species has taken place. And then there has been a degradation of the land through erosion and the compact soil. Then contamination of the soil and water, pollution of the atmosphere, invasive plants, the change in atmospheric composition, increase in industrial chemicals and solid waste, overpopulation and poverty, and the change in the climate. Now, let me come to the impacts of the urbanization on the trees. Now, when we speak about the impact of the urbanization on the trees, first of all, there can be, pollution. The pollution can be of different types. There may be air pollution, there may be the noise pollution, there may be sulfur dioxide pollution, and etc. And then the poor soils, because most of the urban soils are very compact in nature. They are having very less amount of the organic matter in the soil, and the NPK ratio also is very less, because most of the time when we go for this planting of agroforest or plants in the city, we never feed it with organic manure or other fertilizers. And at the same time, as you know, a lot of construction is going on from the pebbles and other things. The generally what happens, the calcium flows into the soil and the pH is always at a higher level. And then there is the exposure to the wind is also there, because what is happening is that because if the tall buildings are there, then what is happening then, wind tunnels are being formed, through which, the velocity of the wind increases. And as such, what happens is that, the bare trees which are scattered here and there, they are more exposed to the wind. If it was in a closet, then it won't have been a problem. Then we are having the drought situation also while planting, because most of the agencies who are planting the trees and they are leaving it after that. So if I find out of the 100 trees that we are planting in the city, maybe hardly 20 to 30 are surviving. The rest is just dying out. And then, there is the flooding and the standing water. It depends on the landscape of that particular place. We all will discuss all these points separately. And then there's the increased temperature and the competition. Now, with respect to the trees, you see there may be some diseases maybe there, because, they may be planted in a shady place and they may not be getting the ample sunlight. And there may be, the damage from the human beings also. Then damage from the animals is also there. Then the salt from the roads, inadequate soil volume, improper maintenance, and conflicts with the infrastructure. So these are some of the points that that is creating an impact on the urban forestry. Now, let me see, these are some of the plants which are tolerant to dust and the smoke. So for selection of the plants, we cannot select any plant. There must be, some selection criteria when we are going for the selection of these plants, because a list of trees are there. Now, under the heading, dust and smoke, we are having those plants like Alastonia scholaris, which is very, very common, Dalbergia sisu, Ficus bengalensis, Bombax seba, Acacia auriculaformis, Cesium cumini, Tictona grandis, Mangifera indica. So these are some examples of the trees which are, having this tolerance towards the dust and smoke. There are many, many other plant species are also there, like Cassia siamia, Dalbergia siso, then, Ficus bengalensis, then Shodia robusta, and Shodia also, then Pongamia glabra. So all these type of plants, you can grow for, especially for, for reducing the dust and the smoke effect. And then we are having trees tolerant to the noise pollution. We are having, Esa nigundo, Azadirachta directa indica, very common, Eucalyptus, then Grevillea robusta, Betulia pendulia, Butea monosperma, Madhuca indica, Terminalia arjuna. And there are also plants like, Juniperus chinensis, then even, this also Terminalia arjuna, I think I've already told you. So Erythrina indica also is there. So this type of plants we should grow to reduce the noise pollution, because they act as the buffers. And then we are having, trees tolerant to sulfur dioxide pollution, because sulfur dioxide is a very important, toxic gas, which is at high levels in the city. And we are having the plants like Albizia lebec, Quercus rubra, Polyalthea longifolia, Casuarina, then Quercus palustris, Ficus religiosa, Ailanthus excelsa, and Lagestromia flos regina. So these are some plants which we can grow to, to bring about some sort of check in the sulfur dioxide pollution. Now, besides, this, previously there was some problem with the lead pollution, and nowadays, of course, it has reduced. And regarding the lead pollution, we can grow some plants like Cassia siamia and Gigifus mauritiana. That means the bare plants we can grow to reduce the lead pollution. And there is another aspect that is, which is ozone pollution, which is which we can say to some extent, it is important. And like Quercus rubra and Esser campestre, this type of plants we can grow to counteract this ozone. And nitrous oxide and all these oxides of the nitrogen, for them, that, like, we can go for ginkgo biloba and pinus species, because these two plants are very, very effective for reducing the oxides of nitrogen. Now, let me come to the design principles for the urban tree planting. When we speak about the design principles for the urban tree planting, that means we must have some sort of design behind our mind when we go for planting. The first point that we are going to discuss is the provide adequate soil volume to support trees at maturity. Now, generally, the general guideline is that for every 1 square foot area of a mature canopy plant, we must have at least 2 cubic foot of usable soil. So for every 1 square foot of mature canopy, we must have 2 cubic foot of usable soil. And these planting areas should be designed as interconnected soil volumes, because instead of planting single way, we can have 2 or 3 plants together. So all these 2 or 3 plants can share a wider volume of the soil. The second one is the preserve and improve the soil quality. Now, this one is very important, especially with respect to the native soils, because native soils means the soils of the Kolkata. And instead of bringing the soils from outside, we should try to limit it, and we should try to preserve and conserve the native soil. Now, when we speak about this preservation of the soil volume, that means, the soil should be porous. Then only it can be accessible to the air, the water, as well as the nutrients. And this can be best done, by separating the paving from the tree's rooting area. That means a little bit distance has to be maintained from the rooting zone and the paving area. And there should be, of course, some periodical inspection must be there. And if necessary, some amendment, if needed, should be done, because amendment of the soil main aim is to, to improve the drainage facilities as well as the fertility of the soil. The third point is to provide adequate space for the tree to grow. And because whenever we are having a design, we must design the surrounding infrastructure to accommodate long-term growth of the tree and space the trees, because you see, it should not be a short-term involvement because or investment. It should be a long-term investment, so that the future generation, at least, they can enjoy. And that will allow the plant to have, go for a long-term growth as well as the management. Then we are having, select trees for diversity and the site suitability, and plant a variety of the species that are tolerant of the climate, because this is very, very important, the selection of the species of the plant. Because generally, the native species are, more suitable for planting in the localized areas rather than to bring about some other, some species from outside. If it is a very, very drought situation, then we can bring some or export some species from outside. But at the same time, we have to check that the species from outside which we are going to plant, it does not become invasive in nature, because generally it has been found that the local species, they're not so much invasive, but the exportable species, they are, most of the times they are very much, they are very, very much invasive. And soil conditions as well as any urban impacts of the site also, it is having some sort of impact also. Then the protect trees from other impacts. And designs should be developed, that protect the trees from for its entire life, from the pedestrian traffic, because with time, the pedestrian traffic is going higher up, and more the pedestrian traffic, the more compact the soil will become. Then there is the question of the toxic runoff, because a lot of this effluents are flowing, the drainage channels are choking, and during heavy rains, the toxic runoff always takes place, and the trees, they get a good share of it. And then especially with respect to high temperature and other impacts also we have to see. Now we are going for the site assessment for urban tree planting. Now this is very, very important because the site assessment for urban tree planting, because without site assessment, how could you plant? Because detailed information about the conditions are to be collected at previously identified planting sites. Because whenever you are going to plant, first of all, you have to identify the sites. Then you have to select the planting material. But we do the reverse. We first get the plants and then we go for searching of the sites, mainly by the agencies, as we have found in the city of Kolkata. And then information, especially with respect to the planting plan must be there. And what to plant, where to plant, what are the spatial methods which are to be implemented or introduced to reduce the urban impacts. Now, this is the starting point, that is the urban reforestation site assessment. Now, this urban reforestation site assessment, in short, we call it as URSA, URSA. And this is very, very important because, there are 9, you can say, design principles are there out of this URSA. And first of all, you can say that this URSA provides a tool to help organize the important data that we collect. And where to plant, what to plant, what spatial methods are needed, that I have discussed in the previous slide. This all comes under it. And first, in URSA, the main thing is that we have to collect the data. When we are thinking of reforestation sites, especially in the urban area or in a watershed area, in those places, we must have an advanced planting plan. Now, the first of all, the 9 elements that you are seeing, the first of all is the general site information. When we say about the general site information, that means, where is the location? So we have to note the site address. We have to see, whether in there are any cross streets are there or not. We have to take the GPS coordinates of that particular place, and then we have to get the grid of that area map. And this is the one important thing under the general site information. And the other important thing, we should also know who is the owner, property owner, who is the current land user of this. Now, the second point is the climate. When we speak about the climate, first of all, we have to see the plant hardiness zone. Now, when we speak about the plant hardiness zone, what we mean is that that particular site which we are going to take into consideration, will the roots be getting enough space to proliferate in that particular soil? Because there is some sort of hard rocky layer underneath. That means in the subsoil region. So this is very, very important when we are going to plant. So we have to study the plant hardiness zone and then the sunlight exposure. Now, generally it has been found that whenever we are going for planting, and when we say that a site is having full sun or it is sunny, that means it must have more than 6 hours of direct sunlight. If it is having, less than 6 hours of direct sunlight or filtered light, that means it is getting partial sun. Sometimes, some nearby buildings may be there, which may reduce the sunlight, and then it will fall under the criteria of the partial sunlight. So more than 6 hours, it is full sunlight, and below 6 hours, it is partial sunlight. And generally, what happens is that, like, especially the key elements which blocks the sunlight, maybe, the presence of tall buildings, the structures are there. But generally, it has been observed that an east facing, planting area that will be receiving morning sun. But if it is blocked by a nearby building, then we consider it as a shady area. Then we are coming to, this microclimatic features, which is also falling under the climate. When we speak about these microclimatic features, this includes, this high wind exposure and excessive heat. When we say about excessive heat, that means the re-reflected heat from the buildings nearby or from the asphalt surface of the roads, like this. Now, signs of the excessive wind. Suppose we are a party, we are going to visit a site. Now, if we find that all the plants in that particular locality are leaning towards a particular direction, and it is having some sort of stunted growth on the wind facing side, then we can determine from which direction the wind blows in that particular zone or in that particular site. Now, especially, if you are going for a hilltop type of planting area, there also, it is a very, very windy area. But in the case of urban sites, like in the city of Kolkata, the wind is funneled between the buildings. That means we call it as wind tunnels. And regarding the reflected and the radiated heat loads, which, which we are getting from the pavement or from the buildings or from any of the urban surfaces, that, cause a tree to heat it up and lose water at a very, very fast rate. So better, it has been observed one thing, that when we are, those areas which are south facing, those south facing areas, especially during the sunny days, they are much warmer than the nearby spots. So these are the broader aspects of these microclimatic features. Other than that, this drought conditions, tolerant to drought species, tolerant to drought, those type of, plant species must be selected. Now we are coming to the next, that is the topography. When we speak about the topography, it consists of two important features. One is the slope, another is the low-lying area. When we speak about the slope, generally, if a slope, it is greater than 15%, then we call it as a steep slope. Now, generally what happens is that if a slope is steep, then it becomes very difficult for carrying out the planting process. Now, it has been observed that, especially if it is a very, very, slopey area, those tree species, they face drought situations because they dry out very, very fast. So, special care has to be taken so that we don't disturb the slopes, whether we are planting in the hillock area. And this type of planting has been done in some places also all around the city. And then the other problem is that low-lying areas. So low-lying areas, of course, during a rainy day, we can easily detect out which places are low-lying areas. So trees can be planted in the low-lying area also. And because we can utilize there the storm water runoff to some extent, but it should be, we should be careful that the storm water that is rushing towards the tree, that is not gathered there and it flows, through an underground drainage channel. Then, with respect to the vegetation, when we go for selection, what selection we will do? The first thing that we should do is that, in a locality or in a particular place, there are different, regional forest associations are there or some clubs are there. So from them, we should try to gather the information, what type of species of trees are mostly growing in that particular area, whether there is any problem with a particular tree species, especially with respect to longevity or any sort of shrubs that we can try to plant out here. And the other thing is that at the same time, we should also be studying the current vegetative cover in that particular place. When we speak about the current vegetative cover, not only, we should try to um, count on the herbaceous plants, the trees, the shrubs that are growing in that particular area, but also the turf or the grasses that are growing in that particular place. Because the presence and the density of a major invasive plant species, or if any noxious weeds, if it is present, that too should also be recorded. And generally, any species which is located within 300 feet of that particular site can be a seed source. So even a plant that which is growing 300 feet from besides the site, or aside from that can also be a seed source, or it can also create problems. And regarding the invasive species, especially what type of the plant or what is the density of the invasive species, that actually determines what sort of control is necessary or not. Then also the adjacent vegetative cover, that means the periphery all along the site, what species are growing, or whether they are naturally regenerating or not. And what's the seed source, and what's the success of the germination. So all these things are to be taken. Next, we are coming to the soil. Now, when we speak about the soil, there are different parameters of the soil. We speak about the texture, we consider its drainage, we consider its compaction. So all these things has to be seen. When we speak about this texture, we have to check whether the soil is sandy, or it is clay, or it is a mixture of sand, silt, or clay. And regarding the drainage also, generally drainage, we categorize it into three stratas. One is the poor, one is the moderate, and another is the excessive. So three types of drainage is there. Generally, when we visit a site, if we find that there is some soil which is having a gray mottling, or there is a foul odor, that means there is a poor drainage in that particular area. And then the other thing is that, because evaluation of the soil drainage is very, very important, because then only we can select the tree species that are tolerant to low-lying areas can be chosen. Then the compaction. When we speak about the compaction, the simplest method of studying whether the soil is compact or not is by the screwdriver test. You just take a screwdriver. The thing is that you have to wet the soil for 2 days, and then you push the screwdriver on the soil surface. If there is no compaction, it will go very easily inside. If a little bit of pressure is needed, that means it is a little bit compact, moderately compact. And if it is severely compact, it has to be driven. So compaction, it is has to be studied, very, very important. And there also we have to choose those tree species which are tolerant to compaction. So this compaction factor is very important. Other than that, the pH of the soil. The pH of the soil, because alkaline nature is prevalent in the city soil, especially near to the buildings, not in all the places, near to the buildings, because generally we, during the construction phase, we throw all the building rubble all and around. And as I've told you, calcium leaches into the soil and the soil pH gets increased. Then there are other soil features are also there, whether, active or severe erosion of the soil of that particular site is taking place or not, or whether there is some sort of disturbance in that particular site because some construction activities are taking place in and around of that particular place. And then lastly, the soil chemistry. For that soil chemistry, of course, we have to check the organic matter of the soil, and that can be analyzed. Like the salt content. When we speak about the salt, all the calcium, magnesium, sodium salts has to be seen. Other than that, the nutrients NPK, that is the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, Then calcium and magnesium should also be tested. So there are easy methods also available nowadays. Now we go to the next point, that is the hydrology. When we speak about the site hydrology, first of all we have to see whether the planting area is an upland or a riparian site. Now, generally, riparian sites are also present in the city of the Kolkata, because wherever the channels are flowing, wherever any water body is flowing, like nalas that we say, all along the stream banks, we can go for planting in those places. So, whenever we are selecting those banks of those nalas or channels, then the hydrology section is also to be studied. Then the other important thing is the storm water flow, because whenever there is heavy rains, you will find that all the water will rush down or gush down to some exit points, and then that is the storm water flow. So we can channelize the storm water flow through a pipe or by some open channels also, to those places where the trees are being planted, and that will help to benefit. Then we are having the potential planting conflicts. So whenever we are speaking of potential planting conflicts, this is very, very important. The first and very important thing is the space limitation. You see, today, when we collect the plants, or even before collecting the plants, when we go for selection of the sites in the city of the Kolkata, we hardly find any barren place or any place to plant those trees or something, or saplings. We have to really search, and then because there is no understanding between the different bodies, whether it is an NGO who is working, or the municipal corporations who are working, or the forest department who is working, or or other like electrical lines are going, the telephone lines are going. So there is no means it should be, all the parties should be on a single platform if we want to actually be successful. Now, regarding the space limitation, first of all, we have to see overhead wires are there or not. Where is the pavement? Whether any structure is there or not. Whether any signboard is there or not. Whether nearby any existing trees, or what are the underground utilities, whether any pipelines are going underneath or not. If it is going, how far below it is going. So the location of the site sketch, that is to be marked, and the height of the overhead wires, then lightning poles and other things, those are to be recorded, or it should be there with you, at least in an approximate manner. And then the other thing is that if infrastructure is present, then we have to think of some sort of alternative designs or materials before we go for planting, so that we try to avoid any conflict between the trees and the existing infrastructure. And setbacks are also necessary. We will discuss about the setbacks. That means what should be the distance that should be maintained. Other limiting factors is that there may be the dumping ground nearby, or the debris. Many whenever we are modifying, or we are making a new house or something like that, or new building, you'll find the trashes and other things, they are always dumped in an open place. And then there may be some mowing conflicts also by animals, or like cows and goats. And then there may be a nearby wetlands, presence of the wetlands, and whether the insects or disease prevalence is there in that particular area. Next, we come to the next point, that is the planting and the maintenance logistics. When we speak about the planting and the maintenance logistics, that means whether the site is accessible or not. Because whenever we are going or planning to plant something, there should be, we will carry all the planting material with the help of the vehicles or something, whether vehicle mobility is there in that particular area or not. And then, the parking space is there, then the especially if some heavy equipments are needed to move around, or whether we can maneuver on the movement of those heavy equipments, that area is there or not. Then regarding the water source also, because it also comes under logistics. Generally, rainfall, stormwater runoff, and so these are the common, water sources. And if, or else we have to hire some sort of tankers initially, or we may talk with some, hydrant, fire hydrants may be present. So all these things are very, very important, especially for proper irrigation to the plant, mainly for the first 2 years. And that is very, very critical. And party responsible for maintenance, this is very, very important. Generally, the especially the corporations, the municipalities, or the forest departments, they may be planting different, plants in your area, but who is going to look after that? That is very, very that becomes a very questionable, because sometimes, if it is within an area of a landowner, then it's okay. Otherwise, we have to take in confidence the local clubs, or if there is a homeowners association in that particular area, we have to take them into confidence, so that they at least maintain them, they give them proper watering, mulching, they weed control, all these things. Now we are coming to the next one, that is the site sketch. Now, regarding the site sketch, example of the planting plan sketch, if we say, of the planting plan sketch, because sketching the site is very, very important. When we are sketching the site, that means, it should have a proper boundary wall, and we should show all the, the landmarks, whether the existing building is there, where there is a parking lot, and uh, then the variations in the sun exposure in that particular site, that has also to be taken into account, because then we can say, okay, this area is getting full sunlight, this is having partial sunlight, like that. And what is the microclimatic situation in that particular area, as well as the topography of the land. Then the current vegetative cover, that has also to be mentioned in the site sketch. And then the location and the results of the soil samples, if possible, that can be also jotted down. And then ground space limitations, what are the, where there is some concrete, structures are there, those structures are also to be shown. And then trash dumping, then pedestrian paths, all should be very much neatly and cleanly shown in a plan sketch. So this is just an example of a plan sketch. Now I'm coming to the next slide, that is the basic planting design. When we speak about the basic planting design, because when if we want to be really successful in any urban tree planting, the first thing is that the selecting plant species is very, very important. Now, whenever we are going for selection of the plant species, what are the factors which are influencing the species selection? As I've told you earlier also, the native species are always to be recommended. But if there is severe site conditions in that particular place, then non-native species we will be bringing about. Now, whenever we are going to plant any tree species, we have to see how much it is acclimatized to that particular area, whether it is acclimatized to the soil type, the soil drainage, the soil pH, or the sun exposure at that particular site. And trees should be hardy and resistant to any noted disease or pest in that particular area. So we have to be very, very careful while selecting the plant species. At the same time, we should also see whether it is having a fast growth rate, because nowadays we generally go for planting of those tree species which are having fast growth rate, which is having some ornamental traits, like with change of seasons, there will be a seasonal shift in the foliage color, then the blooming seasons, and what are the characteristics of the flowers. Then if it is a large size, of course the shady area will also be better. And then what's the specific form, whether it is an upright tree, whether it is in the shape of a pyramid. So generally, here we can go for some training exercise in the very beginning, and the like central modified leader system is there. Then open center system is there. So this type of different, training systems are there, and these training systems are to be taken up when we are planting the trees. At the later phase, when the tree has already grown, you cannot train a tree, but you can prune the tree. That's the fact. And provides whether the tree, it is providing some food also, like fruits or some nuts, so that the flowers, the birds and other wildlife like squirrels and other, animals, they do come. And then the choosing of the plant materials, that is also very, very important. And generally, nursery, the selection of the nursery is very, very also important. You better get it from a government nursery or from a well designated nursery, accredited nursery. And generally, there are different nursery production forms are there, like ball types are there and burlap types. When you are buying the seedlings, it may be in the form of a ball type or burlap type, or it may be a container grown, or it may be a bare root one. Because each of these planting materials, it is having its own size, the cost, the survival rates, the planting procedure, and the establishment success. So on that also, this the plant material selection is very, very important. Now, regarding the plant spacing, that means, in other words, we are going to determine the plant density. Now, generally, if we are going for tree plantings, and that particular area, it is having a lot of buildings in and around, then so we have to determine the plant species spacing depending on the infrastructure, from its distance to the infrastructure and the ultimate expansion of the tree canopy. So that intuition must be there. Now, generally, for large street tree, suppose if it is over 50 feet high, then a spacing of 30 to 50 feet is required from tree to tree. So when the tree becomes, mature, it will be 50 feet high. So we should, the planting distance should be such that one canopy does not cast a shadow on its immediate predecessor. So plant spacing is based on the desired stem density. That is also very important. Stem density has also to be taken into account. And that, because if the stem density is more, then the thing is that, the survivability rate of the stock and the species will also be more. So a hardy plant will survive more, even if it is in the nursery also. Suppose you are taking time for selecting the planting site, and you are already having with you a hardy plant like mahogany plant. It is having a high, density. So in that way, it will be easy for you, to store it. And then we are having the planting plan and the cost estimate, because this is the another thing, because whenever we are going for, this planning or having the planting plan as per the URSA. So more or less, for every site, it will require 6 to 7 hours time to develop a planting plan. And for that, a landscape architect is very much needed. Because a landscape architect, what will he do is that when he draws the conceptual sketch by visiting that particular site, then what happens is that he will translate it into a planting plan. So from a conceptual sketch, the idea falls into a plan. Now, once we get the blueprint, of that plan, that particular plan must have the following, features: that sketch of the site, the planting species list must be there, the planting directions must be there. That means what should be the spacing, the layout. Then the planting instructions has also to be done, because then it will become very, very clear whoever is going to take it up, because he may not be knowing what should be the instructions. Then the equipment that is required for doing the planting, site preparation instruction, what is the cost estimate, that means the entire cost of the project. All those things are to be taken. So that will, make us easier to channelize all our activities. And then Now, the special considerations for urban tree planting, whenever we are going for special consideration, calculation of the soil volume, evaluation of the potential for stormwater treatment, recommend setbacks between trees and infrastructure, other methods to reduce infrastructure and conflicts, protect trees from human and animal infects. So whenever we are going for, the first one, the calculation of the soil volume, because whenever a typical, tree pit in an urban area is only 4 feet by 4 feet in area. That means only about 50 square feet of the soil. Now, generally, if you see this picture, you'll find that you see here you can find that the situation is not very good here. Now, what happens is that if the soil is very, very compacted, then the tree roots, they are typically confined to the pit due to the compacted soils. So this plant, this is a tall plant and a palm tree and bottle palm tree, and it requires, at least, 300 square feet of the soil, but it is growing in only 50 square feet of the soil. So this creates a problem. And generally, before I discuss this one, the first thing is that when planning an urban project where the space is a limiting factor, we have to first calculate the optimum soil volume for each of the tree. And generally, the very, a general thumb rule is that drip line, all of you must be knowing about the drip line of the tree. That means the circumference of the canopy. That is the drip line of the tree. Suppose the canopy is growing, if it is a bowl shaped canopy, so all along the circumference of that particular canopy, we call it a drip area. And generally it is saying that within the projected mature drip line of the tree, we should provide 2 cubic feet of usable soil per square feet. That means for every square feet of the area falling under the drip line, we must have 2 cubic feet of the soil. So this is very, very important. But as it is a thumb rule, it is not so much accurate. Then one of the scientists known as, of James, Urban, who's, you can find that this curve is there, and you can just see that ultimate tree size it is showing, and then it is also showing that the crown projection, the diameter, the breast height, and the adequate soil volume. So here, see, it is the lower limit, the data range, and this is the upper limit data range. And this is the, you can say, the optimal data range. So we should not go outside this. So this adequate soil volume needed for roots can be approximated from the size the tree will be at maturity. Because as it grows, the volume of the soil it requires will be more. Generally, you see, we are taking into consideration the crown projection. We are taking into consideration the breast height. So as the breast height and the crown projection increases, also the volume of the soil will get increased. But what it is trying to say is that we should not use too much low volume of the soil, and we should not, cross the limit also. We should not use also, very much amount of the soil. But it was lacking in some of the features, because it didn't take into account the water needs of the plant, because water need of the plant is also very, very important. And because the tree is having a specific water need, and the water loss is also there because of the transpiration. And so a modified version of the formula that was devised by Trowbridge and Basuk in the year 2004, it was taken into account. Now the parameters which was accounted for, they were the radius of the tree canopy at maturity, and the leaf area index, and then the evaporation rate, then available water holding capacity. Now generally the leaf area index, it varies from 1.5, and with respect to the available water holding capacity, it varies from generally from 10 to 20%. And this can be derived from testing the planting area of the soil, that is available water holding capacity. And the rainfall frequency also is very, very important. That means the average length of a dry period in that particular region. And so these things are, and this type of data, you can get it from any of the, meteorological observatory available in the cities or in the farms. And of course, this 10 years data will help you to judge better. And then evaluation of the potential for stormwater treatment, because this is also very, very important, because many of the urban trees either receive too much of the stormwater runoff or do not receive enough water, because surrounding pipes and pavement direct water away. Because it may not be getting, as you see in the picture, right, the tree may not be getting that amount of the storm water. And or it may be getting either less, or if it is more, because this type of things are very much common in the city of Kolkata, because you see the roads, for extension of the roads, inch by inch they are getting closer to the root surface or the root area of that particular plant. And so stormwater management and planting strategies should be used to manage runoff at planting sites that receive too much water, and to direct the runoff to other planting sites. So we should design a stormwater management so that not too much of water rushes towards the root zone of that particular plant, and extra water can be redirected to some other sites. And so that, and at the same time, if it is a drought area or it is not coming properly, so we should also redirect it towards the plants so that it gets enough water. Now regarding the tree setbacks, when we speak about the tree setbacks, we mean the buffer zones or the minimum distances that one should include between the tree and the existing infrastructure around it. Now generally there are three major zones are there. Above the ground surface, this is that means when the plant is growing, that means it is having conflicts with the lighting, the signs, and the overhead wires. At the surface, this picture, this picture will make it very, very clear to you. This the number 1, number 2 at the ground surface, and number 3 is below the ground level. So these are the three major zones. The second zone, as I was telling you, that is the number 2 zone, that you can see in the slide. This to minimize conflicts with the buildings, the pavement, and the trails. The third is the below the ground, where the tree roots, may be having conflicts with the sewer lines or the drainage pipes. Now, generally, the trees versus the utilities. So there are some problems also there. There are some conflicts are also there. And when we speak about the conflicts, because the falling limbs can cause the power outrages, and trees can grow onto wires, especially with the hanging, overhead wires and other the cable lines and other things. And so the maintenance and the repair of the utilities, that it can create the damage. And so what should be the setbacks from the overhead wires is that if you are growing a small tree, and if an electric wire is there, then it should be at least 10 feet away from it. If it is a medium tree, then at least 15 to 20 feet. And if it is for a large tree, then it is 20 to 40 feet. And distance from the wire to the top of the canopy of the tree should be at least 10 to 15 feet. And if it is if it is growing on some in a particular site where some underground pipelines or channels are there, then at least 10 to 15 feet distance has to be maintained. And then regarding the trees and the pavement area, generally we have find that the tree roots crack or lift the pavement if inadequate setbacks are there. So 10 to 15 foot setbacks are recommended generally for the trees versus the pavement. And regarding the setback area of the trees versus the sewer and the drainage lines, because generally it has been observed, the tree roots can clog or break sewer lines, but generally it takes place especially when the sewer line is very, very old, and trees, they can intervene. The roots, you have seen, how the roots of the tree, they can intervene in any place or in any area, even if it is a very 1 inch even crack is there in the sewer lines, they can get and they can enter into it and they can create a havoc. And so at least 15 to 25 feet setback, that means the distance between the trees and the perforated pipes should be there. And if it is a sewer line, then at least 10 feet distance between the trees and the sewer lines should be maintained, so that this at least the conflict between these two are avoided. And if it is a building area, because generally the tree roots may crack foundations if planted very close to the buildings. Suppose if a lateral root is growing only in one direction towards the building, then there is chance that that it may create a crack in the foundation of that particular building. And root growth also, it becomes one-sided also in those cases. And if there is a high wind, like in the Ampan and all those, then it will easily topple because of these high winds. So the recommended distance that has to be maintained is 15 feet for the small trees, 20 to 25 feet for the large trees. When we speak about small trees, that means it should be near about 30 feet height, 30 to 35 max. And for large trees, it is more than 50 feet in height. And other methods to reduce the infrastructure conflicts, there are species selection, alternative sidewalk design, and then alternative sidewalk materials, and root guidance systems, structural soils, and maintenance strategies. When we speak about these utilities, and utilities, as I've told you, utilities I've already told you regarding overhead wires, underground utilities. Now regarding the pavement also, this one is there. Now one thing is that alternative sidewalk design. When we say about alternative sidewalk methods or design areas, what we should be using is that the trees have an adequate volume of the good soil, water, and oxygen that it is getting. So keeping those in the sense, we have to plan it out. So we have to go for the larger planting space, so we can have a carvings type of sidewalk, we can have the pop outs, we can have the non-standard type of slab sizes, we can have some tree islands, we can have some narrower streets, and modified gravel layer also we can use. And you can see on the right hand side, you see compact urban soil and the healthy structural soil. Now species selection, the right tree in the right place, selection species characteristics can reduce infrastructure conflicts. So this is okay. Generally we are now here. This is very important because you see the left side of the picture that we see, that is very common in the cities. Now generally we should try to avoid these individual tree pits because it confine the roots. Rather, we should go for alternative designs like clustering of the trees, which allows them to share the rooting space. This will reduce the need for the tree roots to grow under the pavement, and it will be a far better venture. So in the future planning, because some of you from the audience may take it up in the coming days, so I will request you all, so don't go for individual tree pits, rather you go for the clustering of the tree spaces. That will benefit us. Now the other thing is that root guidance systems. Now root guidance systems are also very important, because when a plant is growing, we know that it is having a bundle of roots are there, and the soil volume is very less. So how to because we know that there will be a restriction of the root growth laterally or radially, so how to direct the roots to appropriate areas? So what we can do is that we can go for some root barriers, root paths, or steel plates, root channels, continuous soil trench systems that we can do. because whenever there is a conflicts, and this is the best way, but these things are to be done at the very beginning. We cannot do in the middle of the planting. Okay. And root guidance systems, it will force the tree to stay within a confined planting space. And of course the roots will generally find their way around these barriers if needed. It is not that all the barriers will be able to arrest the growth of the roots. And it, as I've told you, it should be installed at the time of the planting, and are not suitable for retrofit applications, that in between you cannot do, okay, let me manage it in between or like that. So that will, if you go for retrofit applications in between, when the plant has already grown out, then it will damage the growth of that particular tree. So these are these examples, like here you can see, this is the trench layer. If you see, these are known as structural soils. So these are known as structural soils. And here you can see the structural soils actually are a combination of the stone aggregate and the soil. And that provides, the strength and resistance to the compaction. And one very important thing is that these structural soils, they are having both the organic as well as the non-organic soil components are there. And these trees have access to the continuous soil trench. So here, above the trench, there is one trench that is growing, which is here underneath all the pits. And what happens is that it connects all the planting pits. So when you are preparing the pit, you put a lot of organic matter in the soil, and this type of trenches can be added on or connected to a some sort of water systems or like that, so that it keeps them moist also. So all the plants, you don't have to water here, or the underground trench will supply the water as well as nutrients to the plants. And maintenance strategies, these maintenance strategies, first of all, you see it is being said, because maintenance is very, very important, and use directional pruning instead of topping when pruning trees near overhead wares. So it should be a directional pruning rather than just pruning here and there. It should be one-sided, and it should whenever you are going for pruning, it is used to you do not use that this kudul and other things. You should use this mechanical sawyers, because that helps to cut in an inclined position, and generally the 45-degree angle should be maintained. And tunneling also, it is a very important alternative to trenching when installing or repairing underground utilities near the trees. Suppose sometimes if your sewerage lines or other things are getting clogged and there is some trees growing nearby, in that sense, the best way to repair those underground facilities is to go go for tunneling, and then you repair those areas. But it is also very much cost effective, and that is to be avoided. And some alternatives to root pruning to minimize damage to the trees. Root pruning, it is not very much advocated in already trees which are well grown up, because that may hinder the growth of the tree. And some other alternatives to root pruning to minimize the damage of the trees can be arranged. Now, protect the trees from the human and the animal impacts. This is also very, very important, because whenever we are planting some tree, it needs also the requisite also protection. It requires the protection from the animals, the human impacts. So all these things have to be taken into account. Now, the site preparation, whenever we are going for the site preparation, these things, the trash and the debris cleanup, because trash and the debris has to be cleaned up, because there is illegal dumping of the trash, the rubble and the other debris also from different parts. And so the site cleanup and the subsequent tree planning, that is very, very important. The second one is the invasive plant control, because generally when we speak about the invasive species, they actually outcompete the plants which are growing in that particular area. Now, both native and non-native plants, they can be, but some of the important characters of these invasive species, that is, they grow very rapidly, and they can counteract a wide range of climatic and soil conditions, and they produce also abundant seeds which are easily dispersed, and those seeds also remain viable for a lot of time in those particular sites, so they can grow at any point of time. Generally, those places lack insect pest or pathogens. Then we can check them, of course, by different methods: biological methods, cultural methods, chemical methods, or mowing operations like that. Next, we are having the soil amendments are there. Now, most of the urban planting are highly disturbed and do not provide ideal conditions for tree growth. And soil amendments, we can provide to the soil in many ways. Like the compost is there, the gypsum is there, the limestone is there, the peat is there, and the sulfur components is there. So it all depends on the pH of the soil, what should be given or not. Because compost, that has been very much successful. We can use like gobar char or farmyard manure, especially for improving the urban soils, because not only it increases the organic matter, it also improves its drainage, and also the vital nutrients are added to it. And then now, these are, I've already told you, these are some typical characteristics of these urban soils. And then we are coming to the tree planting techniques. Whenever we are going for the tree planting techniques, the first thing is that whenever we are making a hole or digging a hole, it should be at least 2 to 3 times wider than the root ball, because we should keep in mind that the roots spread out laterally rather than going deep. And trees also, it should not be planted too deep, because first thing is that why we should not plant it too deep, because if especially the collar region of the plant, if it goes deep, if it is surrounded by the soil, moist soil, or the other things, there are high chances that it may be affected with some sort of microbes or something like that. So collar rot and other things are pathogens are there, so it is to be avoided. Technique varies with the plant materials and when planting on the slopes. So uh, technique also, it is very, very important, and when planting on these slopes, because whether the plant is planted at the correct height, whether especially tree shelter means that the barbed cages, you can say, whether it is has been installed or not, and how much mulch has been applied all around it. Has the tree been properly watered, or has flagging been installed to locate the tree? Because if a small tree, there may be trampling off. So this is very important. And tree shelters and mulch, as I've told you, staking is also very, very important, especially in the windy sites. So this is a tree planting specification, as I've told you. So the mulch layer, it should be kept 1 to 2 inches back from the trunk, so that because the mulching, it helps not only for water conservation, but also it also helps to check the growth of the weeds. It also maintains the microclimate, because roots, generally, the temperature is higher. It requires a higher temperature, especially in that particular zone. And then the trunk flare, the trunk flare, do you observe here? It is very, very clear. No soil is mounted on that. The trunk flare has to be kept open. And if it is tall and lanky at the very beginning, suppose you're planting material, then you can use some ties, and those ties, it should be in the opposite directions. And set the ball on firmly packed soil to prevent settling. So these are some basic points that has to be remembered while going for the tree planting. And then the natural regeneration process is also very, very good, very, very good. And this natural regeneration, to build up some forest, like suppose in and around Kolkata, downtown of Kolkata, if I'm having some land area, we can go for this natural regeneration. We can have some throw some seeds of those forest plants, forest trees, and let them grow. But the conditions should be conducive for the growth, so native species are desirable, and seed dispersal methods should be very much common, and bare mineral salts. The salts should be rich in some, at least some basic minerals, and invasive plant species should be absent, and animal populations are to be kept in control. So initially, you allow the plants to regenerate, and with time it becomes a forest, and then it becomes just a green belt area. But proper planning is very, very important, because in some of the mega cities like in Beijing also, there two green belts were there. They tried this natural regeneration process. To some extent they satisfied, but there were loopholes also. So very, very important, while especially when from the top to bottom, everything should be linked. Now, post-planting and the long-term tree inspection and the maintenance, when we speak about that, you see mulching we require, then weeding is required, then integrated pest management, watering, pruning operations, all these thing has to be done. Because, whenever, we say that, for long-term inspection, and then we have to check whether check the tree figure, and whether the tree is having a very good overall health or not. And then the number of the living trees that is growing soundly, and the species which are performing very well, those has to be marked. And if there is any death of a particular species, or some trees in a particular area, we have to check what's the cause of that mortality. And so it is to be determined if pruning is needed for damaged, dead, or diseased branches. If you want to go for pruning, so we have to check it. Is it really necessary to go for pruning, or can it be avoided? So evaluation of additional weed control, that is an added point. And so these things are to be kept in mind while going for a long-term tree inspection and maintenance. And so these are some of the checklists, as I was telling you, for the long-term inspection of a planting site. And now we are coming to another aspect. Now I'm shifting from those basic things to urban tree canopy assessment. So this is very, very important, because nowadays we are having GIS workflow, GIS stations are there, workstations are there. Now this is in the center. You see the land cover layer is there. Now we can use high resolution multispectral imagery, and then with the help of aggregation and smoothing, we can generate the data, and from that we can get that ancillary GIS data, and we can go for this GIS analysis. But at the same time, when we speak about this land cover layer, what it actually means, or what it takes into account: the tree, the forest, the grass, the meadows, the impervious layer, that is the concrete, the bare area, that is the soil area, and the open water area. So once the GIS analysis is done, then the overall baseline percentage, canopy diversity, we can know whether it is the belt is having the tropical trees or subtropical trees, or tropical monsoon type, or tropical rainfall, the trees fall like that. So we can have that canopy diversity also. We can have that possible UTC, that means urban tree canopy assessment, and then we can go for the analysis. So we can use the 3-band, we can use the 4-band color infrared imagery, or natural colors also we can use. So it has especially ISRO and these different meteorological departments, they are using this sort of GIS models to work out the vegetation cover in above a particular site. Now, when we speak about this imagery and classification of results, now urban tree canopy mapping, you can see in the middle, that is the tree canopy, that is the green layer. On the left hand side, you see we have used the infrared image. Okay, so here also, the same picture. On the left, that is aerial imagery, and the middle, that is UTC mapping. On the right, extreme right, you can see the 5+ land cover. Now in the 5+ land cover, it is far better than the 4+ or the 3+. Now here you can see the clear-cut distinction between the tree canopy, where is the water bodies, the black portions of the impervious layers, where the vegetation is there, and green, that means the grasslands or something like that, and the bare soil wherever it is present. But in the UTC mapping, of course, we can very well get the tree canopy, tree canopy cover, but you see, we cannot get the vegetation cover in a very appropriate manner. So these are some classification of results that has been undertaken. Now, another example that I'm giving is like UTC mapping. Suppose these are some wards. Like, we are having wards of the KMC. So here also some wards are there. So here you can see this is the first ward, this is second ward, third, then we can see the fourth ward, then fifth ward, and the sixth ward. Now, if you see this imagery, you will find, you see vegetation is all there. Now, what we do is that we calculate the vegetation of all the wards and take out a base point, and we calculate the base point. Once we calculate the base point, you see, then from that, here you can see, patchy white portion is there. So the first ward is having less green cover. Then again, if we go to the third one, we can find also here a lot of, this white portion is there. That means it is having less cover. So from there or here also, we can take the decisions, like in which portions we have to plant those trees, where the vegetation cover is very negligible, so that at least the mean standards or the mean base of all the wards is fulfilled. Now, leaf litter hotspot map. This is another interesting thing, because instead of the plants, what we are doing, a shade always shades its leaves. So based on the litter, so you can see here in this map, you say wherever the green portion is there, that means the more plants are there, more vegetation belt is there. That because the litter portion, that means fallen leaves here are more. Then in the yellow, it is medium. That means not so much. In the red zone, that means very low litter production is there. So in the red portion, we will take on planting in those particular sites. Oh, sorry. Now, this is another interesting thing, but I'm not sure whether it is there here in our country or not. This is another, application by which we can know the predatory pests. Suppose in this particular site, we are having 3 type of insect pest. You see the red means that designates one type of insects. The blue designates another type of insects. Then the green, it designates another type of insects. So from this, we can ascertain which pest population is more prevalent in this particular site, and so that integrated pest management can be taken satisfactorily in that particular area. Now here also we can go for tree inventory is there. We can, in the Google Street Tree Inventory, you have to this is the mapping of the urban trees by combining experts, tree lovers, and machines are there. So you can map the trees. They are having a data set, automated catalog is there. You can just place your trees over there, and you can determine what is the species of that particular tree, like this. Now the next is the drone consideration. Next is the drone consideration is there, and because we are utilizing a lot of we are utilizing a lot of nowadays advanced techniques, and drone is one of them. And for drone, by drone also we can map a particular site, like we can use a DJI platform, but the drone should be flying at least 350 feet above the ground level to while it is conducting the survey. And it will take around about 5 hours if it is for taking the photography of that particular area. Once it is processed, and it is converted to orthomosaic imagery. So by studying this orthomosaic imagery, it has to be processed, and then we can know where the water bodies are there, and like that. Now I'm coming almost to the end, like urban forestry and human health. Now, relation between the landscape and the human health, this is very, very important, because, why we are going for this urban forestry. We have planted by this time we have done the planting and other things, created an urban forestry. But why we are going to do it? So first thing is that relation between the landscape and the human health. Generally, whenever we are going to spend time in the natural landscapes, now it is very, very important for the individual as well as the social health, as well as the well-being of the children, the teenagers and the adults. And it is having a synergistic effect activated in the primary care. Now I put the question, that is whether this synergic effect is being activated in primary care. Generally, it has been found when you go to a doctor, he will advise you do some exercise for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever be it, but he never says that you do it in a green environment. If he specifies that you do it in a green environment, that is having a very much plus thing, I think. The second is the supply and the demand. The potential contributions of urban green spaces and nature to human health and well-being also relate to accessibility. So accessibility to the urban green spaces is also very, very important. And because sometimes what happens is that, suppose older persons who is having 65 years old, if the these parks and gardens or resources are very, very far away from it, then it becomes almost non-admissible to him. At the same time, you see some in any parks or any green zone, at least some benches or other things should be there, so that they can take some rest. And so the recreation areas and the health and the well-being can be described as the closer the better. Then especially for the school kids, schools, then eco clubs, that has to be set up, because that creates an inkling in the mind. People now, if you speak about Atma Nirbhar Bharat, that means what? That means you must have some sort of innovations within yourselves rather than being a copycat. So if you are really want to be innovative in nature, you should be very particular that your kids and other things should at least enjoy the beauty of nature for a substantial period of time during his or her childhood days, because that is very, very important, because that helps to nourish them, that helps to keep in touch with them for nature for a long run, and that will definitely benefit. Then physical planning for human health and well-being. So solitude and peacefulness are the main qualities of the landscape, and especially a woodland in relation to recovery from stress and attention fatigue. So sometimes this urban sprawl, that means the noise pollution and other things, that is creating a havoc in the city. So how to reduce it? Because there are some, I have shown you some trees or plants which can reduce the noise pollution to a large extent. So the administrative framework and the implementation of the green belts, this has to be taken in a collective manner. Then only we can meet the ends. And urban forestry are research needs. This is also very important. So suppose we are going to make an urban forest, but are we really doing some sort of research work on that particular setup urban forestry? Hardly anything. Okay, because there are also many things that we can explore in an urban forestry. we can not in different fields, not only new things, but what are the problems that is being faced by the plants of that particular area. Those can also be a part of the research activities. And climate change related projections regarding forest species distribution include changes in plant assemblages and changes in habitats for different species. So this is also very important, because with time what is happening is that climate change is taking place. Some older species are vanishing, some new species are coming up with time. And that may be having a positive or negative psychological and psychophysical effect. Suppose today I'm moving as a young person in a, suppose in a agroforestry belt. I may be enjoying it. Suppose after 40-50 years, when I return back and visit the same place, I may find that there is a change in the set of the plants. I am no longer enjoying that particular beauty of that particular forest. So these things are to be kept in mind for human well health as well as the well-being. And the as a source of health promoting and bioactive compounds, you know whenever we are going for selecting some plant species, we must be also focusing like whether the plant is having some sort of functional properties or not, whether some sort of active ingredients we can extract from them or not, because that will also side by side it will also help to set up some industrial unit to sustain the forest. And phytochemicals also, like phenols, we do a lot of work on the phenols and in the plant system. And especially lignins, lignans and flavonoids, we have worked their antioxidant activities. And nowadays we are more uh, more you can say sensitive to all these things, because to build up our immune system and other things. So, and then cardiovascular and neurodegenerative diseases, some active principles can be obtained from such sort of forest. And then a symbiotic relationship, these fungal endophytes, they always enjoy with the forest, because there are many tissues of the living plants, we they are relatively unstudied. So these are small things that has to be taken into account. And the diversity of the metabolites that are to be isolated, like anti-mycotics or immunosuppressants or antimicrobial, anti-cancer activities, hardly any work has been done on these, I think, endophytes, which are existing in the barks of the trees or in the holes or something like that, or in the tissues in the plant, in the especially in the tree plant species. Now, in the last priority areas, so what we can discuss in today's webinar, what we have to do, where we are lacking. So develop the national criteria, indicators and standards for urban forests, because that is totally lacking here. Develop tools to assess and quantify value of environmental goods and services rendered by urban forest. So we must have accessibility tools, and we be able to quantify what are the environmental goods. Environmental goods may be many things. A forest, it is absorbing a lot of carbon dioxide, giving a lot of oxygen, then carbon sequestration. So all these are environmental goods. Then explore contributions of urban forest in adaptation and mitigation of climate change. How we can mitigate the the changing temperature, the changing rainfall pattern, and like this. They explore the poverty alleviation role and potential of urban forest landscapes, because this is very important, because how the poverty can be alleviated, because beforehand the tribal people, they used to reside in the in the rural forest. Now many of them, the descendants of them, they're moving to the urban belt, and generally the shrinking, the whatever urban forest landscape was there, they are shrinking, and so we have to rebuild them. And then conduct regular tree inventories in urban areas using remote sensing and GIS technologies, that I've already told them that it is very important. And strengthen the profile of the urban forest and associate greenery by integrating various and inseparable components into a cohesive and strong urban green infrastructure. So this is very important, because PP, private public cooperation, is very important. for setting up an urban ecosystem. Otherwise, because if you really want to make it green, this cooperation is very, very important. Expertise from both the parties can be shared. And then institutional mechanisms should be, strengthened to foster and promote regular dialogue and exchange of ideas and information between various stakeholders in the urban forest, just like this webinar or seminars or, some sort of, like training programs that has to be done. So this is slide. So save environment and the plant trees, and thank you all for patience hearing.
Okay, thank you, sir, for your incredible presentation. Now it is the time for interactive session of this session. I like to invite our colleague, Sri Ravi Shankar Das, to start the interactive session.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yes.
At first, I give special thanks and gratitude to Dr. Pinaki Acharya for sharing his valuable information regarding his research work with us. At first, I ask a question from YouTube, which is actually asked by Mondip Bedi. The question is, are there plants that are sensitive to noise pollution and cannot grow well in plants with a high level of noise pollution?
Means, yes, I've already told that, there are plants which are sensitive, which are tolerant to noise pollution are there. Like, this Chatimgach, Alastonia scholaris, and this Acer negunda, then as a director indica, then Butea monosperma. These are all those plants which are having, or resistance against the noise pollution. Anything, I think anything more she asked? Let me hear the question once again. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, let me hear the question once again.
Then another question which is asked by Falguni Bhattacharya. The question is Gigipas Mauritiana.
Ravi Shankar. No, Ravi Shankar, sir wanted to know the question you have already asked. Just repeat the first question.
Okay. Sorry. The first question is, there are plants that are sensitive to noise pollution and cannot grow well in plants with high levels of noise pollution.
You see, there is, you cannot make a distinction like this. Wherever there is, plants which are very much sensitive to noise pollution, okay, suppose if you are growing those plants all along the highway, that means it is a foolishness. So better not to grow such type of plants. Now, what she is trying to say is that, suppose if a cluster of both sensitive plants and, tolerant plants, they are grown together, whether those will survive or not, this they will be affected. I tell you very much, they will be affected.
Okay, sir. There is another question which is asked by Falguni Bhattacharya. The question is Gigipas Mauritiana, etc. The plants which you have mentioned in your presentation, what adaptive features they have to reduce environmental pollution?
First of all, you see, like Gigipas, I've told you, the bare plants, they are having hairy type of leaves. You will find. Okay, if hairy type of leaves are there, then what happens is that and they also, the canopy is also widespread. So what happens is that they catch more amount of this dust and the air pollution, as well as it has been observed that they are very good lead catchers.
Okay. Sir, there is another question which is asked by Achinta Kumar Samanto. Can we recommend neem trees for this purpose?
Neem trees for what purpose? What is the purpose? Suppose
that is not mentioned by him.
for noise pollution, you can grow, this neem tree. For sulfur dioxide pollution, if it is there, then also, you can grow this neem tree. Okay. But with respect to dust and other things, I don't think this neem tree is very much dust and smoke. It is not very suitable. But for noise pollution, it is very, very good. For sulfur dioxide pollution, polluted areas, it is very, very good. A single tree cannot suffice all the parameters. Only some parameters it will suffice.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ravi Shankar, for this nice interactive session. Now I would request to our first presenter, that is Dr. Sandip Mandal. Please come and present the remaining part of the session, which is interrupted due to some technical errors. Dr. Sandip, are you here? Hello? Hello, Dr. Sandip? Please present. Yes. Hello? You are not visible. Okay, just
Yes, it is visible now.
stay. It is visible now.
Yeah. So,
All the participants, please be patient. But not audible.
Is it okay now? Hello.
Yes.
sir,
Yes,
you are absolutely audible, but yes, sir, presentation is also visible. So you can start now, sir.
Okay.
You can
Okay.
start, please, Dr.
Yeah.
Sandip.
So currently we have different methods to remove pharmaceutical compounds or pharmaceutical contaminant from the environment, and we use different kinds of techniques like oxidation, ozonation, photodegradation, as you can see, adsorption, phenton degradation, and also chlorination and reverse osmosis. Here we will discuss about adsorption technique. And so what is actually an adsorption? Adsorption is a surface phenomenon or surface process. Actually, here the transfer of a molecule happens into from a bulk fluid to the liquid surface, and this can occur because of actually physical forces or by chemical bonds. So why we used the adsorption techniques? So there are some advantages regarding these techniques. First of all, you can see the operating cost is very low. The operation is very easy and design is simple, and the efficacy is quite high, which we needed in case of if we try to prepare a bulk amount of adsorbent to use it in the environment. So currently this kind of there are different kinds of adsorbent present. And you can see hybrid particle, bentonite, clay, mineral, zeolite, mesoporous silica, and nanomaterials. But the most important one is activated carbon. But the problem with activated carbon is that it is very costly. The commercial activated carbon is very costly. So we should prepare something. We should prepare something, or we should use a precursor which should be of low cost, that we can prepare activated carbon so that it can be used effectively. So for this reason, we choose agricultural waste. As you know that our economy is mainly still now in an agro-based economy. And you can see the 70% of rural households still depends on agriculture for their livelihood. So what is agricultural waste? Agricultural waste is nothing but a residue that is actually coming from a growing or processing of raw agricultural products. Like it can be anything from fruits, vegetables, meat, poultry, dairy products, or crops. So how much actually currently organic waste, we can say this is organic waste, is produced in India? It's nearly about 700 million tons. So this is actually a problem. This is a problem. So maybe we can turn this problem into an opportunity by converting it into a more reformed resources. So it will actually help in both ways. So this is the second, this is all about the introduction part. And now we will select one model pharmaceutical and I'll show you, and one agricultural waste. So how to remove the pharmaceutical compound and what are the process is involved. So this is the model compound I choose, ibuprofen. Ibuprofen is a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. So, and this is some of the physicochemical properties of ibuprofen. As you can see, it is a colorless crystalline, and also it is a stable drug. And the molecular weight is 206, and it contains, and then it's also the water solubility is also quite high, 21 milligram per liter. And for activated biochar, we are preparing, we are using mung bean husk as a agricultural residue, and from this mung bean husk we prepare activated biochar. As you know, as I can say that this mung bean husk is the seeds of Vigna radiata. Mung bean actually the seeds of Vigna radiata is a scientific name, and it actually you will find it in Indian subcontinent. And it's also a very important legumes in South Asia. And 90% of world's mung bean is produced in India. So if we convert this compound, convert this husk into an useful product, then we can overcome waste disposal problem, recycling, and also we get a valuable product. So now I'll discuss about the third part, model experimental investigation, results, and discussion. So how we can prepare activated biochar? We can prepare activated biochar in different way. This is my optimized process. As you can see, we buy the husk from local store, or you can also go and you can find husk, mung bean husk, and then you can wash it and then clean it, and then you dry it under the sun, and then you use around 550 degrees centigrade of temperature for 1 hour in an inert atmosphere. Means you should not use any oxygen. Without oxygen, you use it, and then after 1 hour, it should be cooled down, and then again you at 650 degrees centigrade for 1 hour, steam will be introduced into the system, and then it will be cooled down, and then according to the size of grinding or sieving, we can and then you should grind it and sieve, and you will get a very lower size, and then it can be ready to use. And now, so before you do the you should always characterize this compound. So you can do elemental analysis of Vigna radiata. First of all, there are two kinds of analysis. One is ultimate analysis. Another one is proximate analysis. Ultimate analysis and this is the ultimate analysis is more comprehensive, and it is a quantitative determination of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and sulfur. And in this case, you can see this is the source, Vigna radiata, this mung bean, and steam activated biochar is the compound. So you can see here the carbon content after preparing, the carbon content has been increased. And in case of proximate analysis, it is actually characterization of moisture, volatile matter, ash, and content and fixed carbon. So you can see that here the carbon content in Vigna radiata is quite high because higher fixed carbon actually needed to absorb the compound and to maximize biochar yield. And here, another thing that you can see this one to this one from 36.94 to 59.35. Here we get a very pure carbon, and due to the pyrolytic effect from here to here, and the organic substances are degraded, while gas and liquid parts are discharged. Therefore, we'll get a very high quality carbon or high purity carbon. So this is some of the physicochemical characters properties of Wigner radiata. We should we need to know their point of zero charge, the surface charge of this biochar, that is 8.6, and the BET surface area. As you can see, surface area is very essential to actively absorb the drug onto the surface of biochar. So it's quite high, 405, and the micropore volume is also very low. So this is the surface of mung bean husk. This is you can see there is a different kinds of pores are there, and this pore and the surface actually helps to absorb the pharmaceutical contaminant onto its surface. This is the 1000 magnification, and this is the before and after absorption of ibuprofen onto mung bean husk using FTI spectra. As you can see, there is a changes. This is a before, and this is the after. Before means this is only the mung bean husk biochar, and after it absorbs the pharmaceutical contaminant, that is ibuprofen, there is a shift. You can see 777 to 768 carbon and hydrogen band, and in case of this one, there is a nitrogen and hydrogen band, and there is the NH stretching. This one actually helps us to tell that how the pharmaceutical contaminant actually are absorbed onto the surface of activated biochar. Now we will study the batch mode absorption study. So batch mode absorption study was done to understand which one will give us the optimized condition so that we will remove the pharmaceutical at its highest level. So here you can see we used different kinds of absorbent. We used absorbent dose in a milligram, means that the prepared activated biochar. We use it, and then actually as you can see, if we increase the absorbent dose, the percentage removal of ibuprofen is also increased. But after a certain period of time, it gives a plateau. So why this is happen? Because if we increase the masses, so it means more absorptive surface area. It means it can actively absorb more active, so it has more active sites, and thus it helps to absorb more compounds. So, and in case of time of contact, the second part, in the case of time of contact, if you increase the time, then you can see the percentage removal is also increased. But after a certain period of time, because there is saturation happen here, so it is actually gives us the plateau. Now, if you go into the third step, that is the pH, or our third parameter, pH, we found that at pH 2, the highest removal of ibuprofen happens. And in case of agitation speed, if we increase the agitation speed, the removal is also increased, but after a certain period of time, it goes down. And this one actually gives us the highest peak. Now, in case of temperature, if we increase the temperature, the percentage removal of ibuprofen is decreased. So it actually concludes that it is an exothermic process. And now, if we see this one, this is the ibuprofen concentration, and here you can see this is the percentage removal of ibuprofen. Then this is QE, is the absorptive capacity of our prepared activated biochar. So if we increase the ibuprofen concentration, here this is ibuprofen concentration, the removal is decreased. As you can see, the removal is decreased, but in case of absorptive capacity, it is increased. Actually, this phenomenon can be explained by the fact that active sites present on the adsorbent surface are limited in number, so they become saturated at a certain concentration. But increasing initial IBP concentration, means ibuprofen concentration, increases the mass transfer from concentration gradient, thus what you get? An increasing absorption capacity. Now this is the kinetic parameters. This is the kinetic parameter. We have used different kinds of kinetic model, but here I will only show the best results I got. And this is the it follows the pseudo second order kinetics. As you can see, the R square value, this is the temperature, this is the experimental value, and this is the calculated value, and this is this one K2 and H, these are some constants, and this one is the R square value. R square value you can see is very higher, so it follows a pseudo second order kinetics. Now, if we go to the here, this is the Langmuir isotherm, and this one is a pseudo second order kinetic model. This is the thermodynamic parameters. As you can see, this is Kc, and this is del G, gives free energy, and this is this one is enthalpy, and this is an entropy. Del H is an enthalpy change, and del S is an entropy change. What happened here? You can see there are different temperatures. So if you actually see the del G or gives free energy is negative. In all the cases, it is negative, right? A negative value of del G confirms the process of ibuprofen sorption onto the adsorbent was actually feasible because they are all negative. So it is feasible and spontaneous or very reactive in nature. And the value of del G, if you see the value of del G increases with increasing in temperature. If you increase, it is also increasing. You can see. So it means lower temperature makes the adsorption process favorable. And the negative value of del H here indicates the adsorption process was exothermic in nature. That I have already mentioned in my batch study. And the del S, as you can see, del S is also negative. And it suggests the process was enthalpy driven. So this is the thermodynamics. And now if we consider the comparative study, so this is my study. I have already published this paper. So the adsorptive capacity is found is 59.76. It's somewhere between this to this. So, and but the thing is, in all the cases, Mukbin has activated biochar is highly effective as compared to other. So now we are actually saying we are discussing about now response surface methodology. So response surface methodology actually a statistical tool to model an analysis of a problem where response of interest. Here, our response of interest is percentage removal of ibuprofen. And that is influenced by several parameters. So for this case, we will use a central composite design. I will show you later. And that is a tool to design a standard RSM design that helps to model and optimize of our pharmaceutical compound. Here, the removal process, as you can see here, the removal process of ibuprofen was optimized by response surface methodology by using three variables. One is pH, you can see this one. Then second one is agitation speed, and third one is dose. In this table, this is the units and this is the symbols. In this case, this one, we will choose this data from our previous data, means from our previous batch study data. Hello, yeah, this one 3 and 5. We choose pH 3 and 5. This is the range, and we'll get the midpoint 4. As you can combine these two and divide it by 2, you will get this one 4. And then this is the lower range of pH, and this is the higher range of pH. The same way you will do the second thing, the second and third parameters, and you will get this kind of range. Now, if we input our data into the CCD matrix, we'll find this kind of, you can see this is a central composite design for 3 independent process variables. Here you can see this is the coded values. Software will do this, but this one you have to, these are our real values, and you have to do the experiment on this one. So, and you have to do it 3 times, at least triplicate, and then, and this is the predicted by software, and this one is done by the researcher experiment. And you'll find that this one, the run number 16, will give us a very high removal efficacy of our adsorbent. So here you can choose this one, 2.32 pH, 200 milligram, and 100 that is RPM. Now we can also see it if we actually this table actually. This table, actually, this RSM model fits some of the statistics, and this table actually show how well our data were fitted into RSM model. And the model, actually, the model competency was evaluated by fitting the response into the existing. You can see the linear, 2-factor, quadratic, cubic. And our software suggests that this one is this one, the quadratic is the best one we can choose, because the adjusted R square and predicted R square is quite high. And then here we use the ANOVA analysis. This one, ANOVA. ANOVA means analysis of variance, is used in quadratic model to check the statistical significance of the model by taking Fisher's F value. This one, Fisher's F value along with the P value. This is the probability value. If the magnitude of this one is higher and P value is smaller, then with insignificant lack of fit, this one, here you can see the lack of fit is not significant. It means the quadratic model is a significant model, the quadratic model. And another thing we should remember, the P value is the less than 0.05 and indicated the model terms, means this is the terms models in A, B, C that we have already discussed, and AB is in combined, AC is in combined, BC is in combined. So if, as you can see, if it is less than 0.05, that indicates model terms are significant, whereas the values, if the greater than 0.1, that are not significant. And lack of fit should be non-significant, which I have already mentioned, to fit the model adequately. Here you can see from this, here you can you can tell which parameters are significant by seeing this data, that like this one, and also like BC and C square. They are significant terms. And you can see the CV. This is the model statistics, and the coefficient of variance here is very low. So it suggests if it should be low, then we can say that our model's reliability and precision, our model is very reliable and our data is also very precise. Now the three-dimensional surface plot. You can see the agitation speed, and this is the pH. Here, the agitation speed is 150 that we have already used in our previous slide. You can see 150 to 250 here, and from pH 3 to 5. So increase, you can see the percentage removal is also increased, but after a certain period of time, means if it's in the 5 pH, it is decreased. Same thing happened in case of agitation speed. If we increase, it is increased, and then after a certain period of time, it was decreased. So this is the 2 parameters here, the pH and the agitation speed, how they affect the percentage removal of ibuprofen. You can see it in a 3-dimensional way. The same thing you can do in case of dose and in case of pH. and you can see the percentage removal of ibuprofen, how they affect. And in case of dose and agitation speed, you can see if you increase the dose, it is also percentage removal is also increased, but after a certain period of time, it is going to be decreased. Sorry. So what? So here, voice. Okay.
Okay, I think problem. Okay, continue, please.
Hello.
Continue.
Is it audible? Hello, hello. Okay. Okay, now after we finish the answer model, we'll go another model that is artificial neural network. The artificial network is an artificial intelligence system that is based on the structure. It is actually similar to our biological neural system. And construct this, and it is a very powerful technique which actually make a decision and drawing a conclusion in case of complex, noisy, and partial information. So these two three-factor, full-factor central composite design in ISM previously discussed, and the NLP model actually helped us to predict the relationship between the experimental variables and a response variable, the variable rate of RH. So this is the structure, as you can see, dose, pH, agitation speed, and then you will have some hidden layers here, the input layers, and you get the percentage removal of ibuprofen. So this is the neural network architecture. So actually, I think we should construct ANN model. Two important tasks like selection of network size, choice of number of hidden layers and neurons should predict the experimental data.
Hello, sorry to interrupt you. Please, we cannot hear properly. Please, your mic is okay or not?
Okay, maybe I can join again. Should I join again?
Yeah. Is it possible for our computer experts?
Yes, I can. Okay, I can. Yes, I join again. Wait for a few minutes. I will be back. Wait for a few minutes.
Okay, then. Okay, please stay with us.
Yeah. I'll come. I'll come very quick. Okay.
Please stay with us on the participant.
Okay.
These are nothing but technical problem. Please stay with us.
Is it okay now? Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes.
Hello now.
Yes, sir, you are audible. Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay. So should I continue or I'll do it again?
Please continue.
Okay. So this is the steam activated movement has biochar, and here we actually use different kinds of hidden layer, and I'm actually here showing my results actually. The resilient backpropagation model I am using here, and actually to construct the ANN model, two important tasks we should remember. First of all, the appropriate selection of network size and the choice of number of hidden layers. Actually, we should be. This is very important to predict the experimental data and the input data. Input data means this one here, the input layer data. So the input layer data was trained via an error backpropagation algorithm in the feed-forward network of ANN architecture. Here, the experimental design actually was planned. Here, I show again the dose, adsorbent dose, pH, and RPM. They are independent variables, and output nodes are the percentage removal of ibuprofen is the dependent variables. It is depends on these three input variables. So this is my results. As you can see, the correlation coefficient was quite high. I actually did several hidden layer, used different kinds of hidden layers, and find this one is the best one. And this is the regression plot, and this will gives us the results. And so this is a ANN, artificial neural network modeling. So the next one is fixed bed column adsorption experiment. Actually, the data obtained during batch adsorption that I have already mentioned is actually not sufficient to provide accurate scale up required in the design of adsorption column. Therefore, what we need some studies of column adsorption systems in which column breakthrough curves are determined, and that is very essential for the determination of operating lifespan of this fixed bed adsorbent bed. This is the influent tank. It contains the pharmaceuticals, and then you will use the pump to feed into the adsorption column. It goes against the gravity, and then the flow direction here, your adsorbent, you place the adsorbent here, and then it will come into here, and you will get a clear water here, the effluent collection tank. If it is more, and then we can detect our pharmaceutical contaminant, whether present or not, we can detect it from here. So this is the column adsorption study of ibuprofen removal by steam activated movement as biochar. You can see the time, and this is the CT, and this is the C naught. Initial, and CT means the concentration here. Here the pharmaceutical contaminant concentration, and here the pharmacy C is 0. C0 is here and CT is here. So this is the ratio. When you will make a plot, then you will get this one, and here you will change. Here I am changing the bed length of the adsorbent 1 centimeter, 2 centimeter, and 3 centimeter, and here the flow rate was changed into 2 to 6 ml, and this one is the concentration of pharmaceutical contaminant 20, 30, and 40. So you can understand it very easily from here. As you can see here, this is the column data and parameters with different bed height. The inlet concentration, this one, the inlet concentration, and the flow rate, here I'll make it fixed. And then I change the bed height 1 to 3 centimeter, and you find the breakthrough point is 230 minutes. Means at 230 minutes, 50% was adsorbed and the 50% was released. And we get the bioabsorption capacity of 4.38. Now, so we choose this one, the bed height 3 was selected, and then again we change this parameter, the flow rate, and we found that 4 is still, you can see the adsorptive capacity here is better. Here, the 20 here, the 4.3 is the better. And then if you change the inlet concentration from 20, 30, 40, you will have the highest adsorptive capacity, the bioabsorption capacity here, 5.71. And this 2 parameter is also very much important, MTZ value, or it will called mass transfer zone, means how much drugs are actually transferred here in the mass transfer zone. This is the place where mass transfer takes place between the adsorbent and adsorbate, and the length of the adsorbent in the column that is actually generally being saturated. Now another thing is fractional bed utilization. This is the value. This value is also important, which is being effectively used for adsorbing solute at the saturation concentration. This one, this FBU. Now we can use different types of column models and equations. And here we use Thomas models, Adams Bohart models, and Ewan Nelson models to predict which column models actually gives us the better results. And we should remember an ideal model should be mathematically convenient and able to predict the breakthrough curves and evaluate the effect of each characteristic variables on absorption. So here we use Thomas models and Adams Bohart model, and we found that the Ewan Nelson model actually gives us the best results. And this model is compared to the other two models, and there is no detailed data concerning the characteristics of adsorbent and physical properties of the adsorbent bed is needed. So this is a very important, and this is the thing. The tau, tau is, you can see this is the tau is a minute, and you can compare it with our previous slides. This one, yeah, this one. You can see this is our column study. This is 60. Here we'll get around 51.9 here. So, and we get R square value is 0.973. So, Ewan Nelson model actually here the Ewan Nelson model actually show that gives us the and a very good idea about how hello.
Yes, please continue.
Hello. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes,
Okay,
sir, you are
yes.
audible.
Yeah. First, the line was yes, gone. Yeah, okay. And so, and the last thing is the cost analysis. So after we finished the model, we'll come into the main thing, the cost analysis. If it is the cost is lower, then only we can use it in a larger proportion in different in environmental sectors. So the net cost of the preparation of adsorbent, the adsorbent material cost is 12 INR per kg, and the initial drying of adsorbent cost because the drying is goes under the sun, so it's zero. Carbonization cost is some activation cost, and then we'll get the net cost and other overhead cost. That is the 10% of the net cost, and the total cost to prepare 1 kg of this steam activated biochar is 50 rupees only. Where if you want to buy from a commercial source, it will cost around 1,000 INR. So at last, this is my last slide. In conclusion, I say that Mugmin husk actually has a dual advantages like cost-effective precursor for the preparation of carbonaceous adsorbent along with the solution for waste disposal problem and recycling. And the thing is the best suited adsorbent and its parameter in a batch study we can use to choose our optimized model and column study for the removal of pharmaceutical contaminant. And you can also try this husk not only for ibuprofen, some other pharmaceutical compound can also be used, which having a negative impact on the environment. You can also try by using this low-cost adsorbent material. So this is my references, and a big thank you to all of the members of the organizing committee, chairperson, joint convener members, and technical coordinator. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can ask.
Thank you, Dr. Sandeep Mondal, for your wonderful presentation. Now it is the time for interactive session of this session one. I like to invite our colleague Srimati Ishita Chatterjee. Please start the interactive session. Ishita madam.
Okay. Good evening, everybody, and thanks to Dr. Sandeep Mondal for such an enlightening speech. I would like to ask a few questions on behalf of the participants. Due to shortage of time, a few questions from the participants has been selected. Mr. Samrat Banerjee has asked, are the agricultural waste able to absorb toxic heavy metals from soil?
Yeah, of course. There are some, although I am not working on mm, minerals or soil, but you can, yeah, of course, you can use. There are several papers are actually published. You can use it. Yeah, you can try actually.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next question. I have a question. What are the long-term adverse effects of active pharmaceutical compounds on human health?
Long term. Okay, actually,
Adverse.
okay. Actually, as you can see, we are increasing, means we are consuming the pharmaceutical compounds every day, not only for us, also for farming. I have already said this one here. You can see we are using an animal farming and aquaculture we are using, and actually it is increasing day by day. So if we do not actually do something about it, in future, maybe in the next generation or maybe 100 or 200 years later, the concentration of pharmaceutical will be increased, and it will actually come into the drinking water treatment or groundwater system. And the groundwater system is very much essential, because this one actually gives us the pure water, the groundwater. So if it is contaminated, then we'll have a scarcity of what, not scarcity, we can say that it will actually contaminate the groundwater. And so we should stop it from its initiation, not from here.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Sandeep.
Okay, thank you.
And Ishita Chatterjee. Now it is feedback time. I request please keep patience. The feedback will be shared in the chat box. Now I request our head of the Department of Botany, Dr. Madhusri Das, to vote of thanks. Dr. Madhusri, please.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Tamalda. Honorable Chairperson, our most esteemed participants from various institutions from all over the India and abroad, my friends, colleagues, and my dear students. It is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. I, on behalf of staff and students of Hiralal Majumdar Memorial College for Women, Dakshineshwar, Kolkata, and the entire fraternity present here today, and on my own behalf, extend a very hearty vote of thanks to the speakers, Dr. Pinaki Acharya and Dr. Sandeep Mondal, for taking time from your respective schedules to grace this occasion and sharing valuable information with us. You have provided several ideas to our participants. I'm sure all participants present here will have a lot to take away from the lectures. I'm sure we will meet again in our college. Thank you. I would like to express profound gratitude to our respected Principal Madam, Dr. Shoma Ghosh, for inspiring, motivating, supporting, and guiding us. We are all inspired by your great words and constant efforts. Thank you, Madam. I would like to extend my thanks to Honorable President of our governing body, Sri Madan Mitra, and all the governing body members of the college for constant support in various academic endeavors. I would like to extend thanks to our IQAC coordinator, Dr. Rupa Sen, our bursar, Dr. Lipika Mallik, and seminar subcommittee convener, Sri Pradipta Mukherjee, for their moral support and valuable suggestions. I would like to take this opportunity to place on record our hearty thanks to Srimati Pooja Das and Srimati Atreyi Bhattacharya for the perfect logistic support and guidance extended to all of us. No words are enough to show our gratitude towards them. Without your support, we would not have reached so many people. Well, an event like this cannot happen overnight. The wheel starts rolling weeks ago. I'm fortunate enough to be backed by a team of very motivated and dedicated colleagues and students of the Department of Botany who know their job well. I cannot thank everyone enough for their involvement and their willingness to take on the completion of the task. Thanks a lot to the joint conveners, Dr. Tamal Mandal and Srimati Munmun Kundu. I also extend my thanks to Srimati Ishita Chatterjee, Sri Ritik Acharya, and Sri Ravi Shankar Das for their cooperation and dedication. Last but not the least, I would like to acknowledge all the participants for your overwhelming response. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I want to state that we all are grateful to you all. We thank you for being with us this evening. It has been a great pleasure. And lastly, I would like to apologize for the technical glitches which happened and which are beyond our control. Thanks for bearing with us. Thanks for your patience. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now it is ending time. From the permission of Principal Madam, today's webinar session is now end. Thank you all for your patience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.